Hello and welcome to Your Overseas Home's first webinar of the autumn season, just about. Today we will be going through the basics of buying a property abroad. My name is Christopher Nye and I'm the senior editor at Your Overseas Home. I've been writing about buying property abroad for over 20 years now, including taking people abroad to actually look around properties in France and Spain and Cyprus and Greece and Italy and Portugal with a certain Channel 4 TV show that I won't mention now. I'm joined by Rosie Bradley, who is a senior copywriter at Your Overseas Home.
Thanks, Chris. Yes, I'm Rosie, relatively new to the international property scene. My background is in fashion journalism, whereas I'm working now with Smart Currency Exchange and Your Overseas Home. So to all of our viewers, this session lasts around 30 minutes. We will have time for questions at the end, and if you do need a reminder of anything discussed today, it will be available on demand after the webinar.
Excellent. So do type your questions into the questions tabs box on the right hand side. So who are Your Overseas Home? Well, we help people buy abroad as property guides. We started in 2004, so we're coming up to our 20th year. We have a team based in London, property consultants, but we also have research writers and researchers really all over the world, and certainly in the 6 countries that we'll be covering today.
Yes, definitely. So we cover France, Spain, Portugal, Italy, Greece, and Cyprus, as you can see on our map there. And we also produce a range of useful guides. So there we've got how to buy an off-plan property in France, our moving to Portugal guide, and a viewing trip guide. So basically anything you need a guide to move overseas, we've got it.
Correct. Our service is free to you. We're paid a commission from property sales and currency services, etc. So we do only partner with the most trusted services because our reputation depends on it. Our websites are packed with information. There's my face again, buying property in Greece. Our websites cover essentially buying property. Also, we cover moving to those six countries, and we also go beyond that because we also cover living there. So it isn't just about the property; it's also about the whole process of retiring to Cyprus or Greece or Portugal. We cover the whole process from the first thought to actually settling in and living there. And lots of our readers keep in touch even after they bought there. We also have news.
Yes.
Yeah, there's a few of our news
Yeah, there's a
articles.
few of our most recent articles. We also have a partnership with Rightmove and are asked to comment on overseas property. In the past week, we've featured on Sky News, the Daily Express, the Guardian, and the Sun.
And also we do, what I would say is probably the biggest overseas property survey, surveying our readers every year to get the in-depth knowledge about what they're looking for, what their problems are, what they need to know, basically. And we pass that information on in general terms to estate agents and lawyers so they know the property buyers' pains and what they need to know.
And what
Interestingly,
did our most recent survey? Sorry,
yeah,
Chris, I think we've got a bit of backlash on there.
we have a delay. So what we asked this time round was we asked people who'd already bought how the process was, because you might think it's quite hard to buy property abroad. Well, what people said was overall 43% said it was simple, easier than I expected. 51% said it was okay. 5% said it was quite difficult, and only 1 in 50 said it was very difficult. So I think that's important to realize that yes, it's not a simple thing. It's not as easy as perhaps buying in the UK or in your home country, but it's certainly not difficult. It's not impossible to buy your property abroad, and that's why we thought we would do this webinar. So we would sort of just explain the basics, the overall process in all those 6 countries, because much of the process is the same. So, what's the key to success? I think it's probably planning. So, take us through some of the planning things you need to think about, Rosie.
Yeah, of course. So we've separated the planning into four questions to ask yourself. So the first question is, what will you use your overseas property for? So you need to make a decision on that, especially since Brexit, different rules apply. Apologies to all non-British viewers. Although the good news is you can still buy property abroad. The question is what you can do with it. So for some of our non-EU citizens, including Americans and Australians, we'll come on to that shortly. But also, just because it will help you decide what to buy, if it's a property that you'll later retire to in later life, consider both elements from the outset. If realistically it will be difficult to get a visa to retire there, then maybe just look at what you want from this property as a holiday home.
Yes, because you'll want different things for different types of purchases. So, for example, I couldn't be bothered to hire a car every time I was looking to just pop down to a holiday home. So I might then look for something that was on a bus route or an easy transport from the airport. Um, it's important to work out exactly what you want it for. The next question we would want to highlight is, do you want to buy off plan or do you want to buy a property that's already been built? Off plan simply means that you're buying it off a sheet of paper, off a plan. You're reading off the plan and you're buying it as it goes up. So, for example, you might pay 30% when the foundations go in. You pay another 30% when it becomes watertight, and then obviously your final payment at the end. There are certain advantages to buying off plan. It can be cheaper. You can get there in early, so you can help almost design your property. Certainly, you can choose the finishes. On the other hand, you're buying effectively the promise of a building, and although there's all sorts of legal protections in place, um, it's not as obviously simple as just choosing a property that's already there.
Yeah, definitely. Our next question is must-haves versus nice-to-haves. So in this sense, we're asking you to prioritize what is a must-have for your property rather than just a nice-to-have. So we would suggest limiting the amount of must-haves as much as possible. I know when a friend of mine was a property finder, often people would give them a list of essentials and then fall in love with something completely different when they actually saw the properties. So you do need to make it clear what you actually want and what you could potentially see yourself living in. In terms of who you're buying with, you do want to be on the same page at this point, as you don't want to be arguing in front of your property agent while you're on your viewing trip.
Yeah,
And our next question is where to buy.
yeah, well, this is obviously the biggest question, and it's the old paradox of choice, where you've got so much choice of where to buy that it's hard to make a decision. It's a bit different when you're purchasing your next home in your home country, because you want to be near work, near your mum, near good schools. But when you can buy anywhere in the south of Spain or the south of France, it can be hard to pin down one particular place. What I find works is that if you really drill down into exactly what you want. So if, say, you want a French village, you want to go to the market on a Saturday, you want to be able to walk there, you want it within a 4-hour drive of a channel port, then you can isolate those places from the start, and then you won't be endlessly thinking, oh, perhaps the next village is going to be better. Think creatively too. For example, in our last survey, the most important feature for French buyers was being within walking distance of the shops, the boulangerie, which might limit yourself to half a mile or so. But if you could, for example, get an e-bike, then you could extend that to a mile or two, and you get the same advantages, but you'd have a much more wider range of choices. So
Okay, so
the next part of the planning is going to be what you can do there, Rosie.
yes, so our first question is, assuming you're a non-EU citizen, the same rules apply to British, Americans, and Australians buying in the European Union. So our first question we've asked is, can you get an EU passport? Um, yeah, tell us about that, Chris.
Yeah, if a parent of yours was born in Ireland, then you are Irish, whether you want to be or not. Really, you can just claim an Irish passport. If a grandparent was born there, then you have a slightly more complicated process, but you can still get an EU passport, and that will make your life a lot easier if you intend retiring to any of those countries that we've mentioned. Similar rules apply for different countries. So if you find a German ancestor in the recent past, or Portuguese, or anything else, then there are slightly different rules, but certainly you have a good chance of getting an EU passport. So do look into that.
Yes, so basically, if you have no EU passport or visa, the rules that apply to non-EU citizens is that you can stay in that country for 90 days in every 180. They will now check your passport entering the EU, any country that is. So if your holiday home is in France, but you have to travel through Germany to get there, that will include. So it is a rolling contract as soon as you enter the Schengen area. So as soon as you set foot in Europe, you can be there for 90 days out of 180. If you do overstay this, then they can stop you going back. And it has been quite tight on this at the moment. We would treat it like the US immigration authorities, who you just don't mess with or take a chance on. So definitely keep in mind with that.
Yeah, and also bear in mind what is the Schengen area and which is the non-Schengen area. So the Schengen area covers 26 countries of Europe, but it doesn't actually cover Cyprus, and it doesn't cover Ireland. So you don't have to include time spent in Ireland as part of your 90 days, although you would have to if you had spent some days in France but intended living in Spain. So if you need a visa, there are various different types that you can use. There are different types in different countries, but they tend to fall into the same categories. So we'll go through them. Firstly, the retirement visa. Now, in Spain, this is known as the D7. In some countries, it's known as the non-lucrative visa. It basically means that you're not going to work there. You have to show that you're not, you have to prove that you don't need to work there by showing a certain level of income. In Spain, that's quite hard. It's like 23,000 euros that you have to prove that you have access to every year. I believe in Portugal, it's only about 7,000. So there's different amounts of money, but they all require you to show, firstly, an income, secondly, health insurance, and thirdly, you'll often be shown to prove some kind of good character. So you'll just need a letter from the police saying that you're of good character. I know that may sound complicated, but lots of people do it. It really isn't hard. The police are completely used to being asked, so don't worry about it. Just
Yeah.
get your visa agent to help you with that.
I think it's completely the same as when you get someone to sign the back of your passport picture to confirm that it's you. So it's quite an easy process. And yeah, for each of the specific requirements, obviously Chris and I aren't experts, so please do contact us to be put in touch with a visa specialist. Okay, so the next one is a golden visa. This is it's popular in Portugal, Spain, I believe Cyprus, and elsewhere across Europe. It's been so popular in Portugal actually that they have suspended it. I believe you can still apply, but the the scheme basically is a investment residency by investment scheme, which basically means that you have to invest money into property in that country, and therefore you will be eligible for residency. Each country has a specific minimum amount that you have to invest. So for those numbers, do get in touch with a visa specialist, as they're changing quite often. I think Cyprus's was raised in January quite a lot. So yeah, definitely check that out if you're interested.
Yeah, it's quite a controversial topic, golden visas, whereas non-controversial and something that is rising in Europe and in fact global is the digital nomad visa. Now, a digital nomad is the kind of person who can just work from their laptop anywhere in the world. I've got relatives who seem to spend a couple of months in Thailand and a couple of months in the US. They can sort of travel around. Now, it hasn't been much used by people who want to buy property, because obviously, if they're buying property, they're not very nomadic. However, it is increasingly being used by people um, who wish to live abroad, so they can work in their holiday home, and they can then um, um, come and come and go as they wish. Yeah, I think it basically requires someone to work for a foreign company.
Yeah, and obviously for that company to be okay with you working from not that country. So, for example, if I was able to work from home on a different time zone, then I would be suitable for the digital nomad visa. Okay, the next one is a working visa. So pretty self-explanatory. This is for anyone who's looking to work in the country that they want to buy property in. Um, these vary from country to country. There are some visas available for people who are highly skilled in their industry, say doctors, nurses, surveyors, and each country will have a list of high, like in demand property. Sorry, in demand um, jobs. So you can basically work to gain residency um, via this visa. So they're definitely worth looking into if you're skilled at something. And I also believe there's some for people who are performing in that country, say like actors, things like that. So yeah, they're definitely worth looking into.
Yeah, and there's the EU blue card, which is like the American green card, but the EU's version. So that's also something to consider applying for. There's all sorts of ways. Just speak to that visa expert, and it's their job to get you there. Okay, moving on. So you know that you can get there. You know you want to buy. You know you can live there or do what you want anyway. So I the buying property abroad is it's usually the culmination of a lifetime of saving, paying money into your pension, generally being sensible with your money, and of course you want to ensure that your money is safe. And I think the most the easiest way of doing that, while also fulfilling those dreams, is to get your support team in place. You don't have to do this on your own. There are three elements to your support team. We call them the golden three because they're so vital. The first one is the estate agent.
Yeah, so we recommend you work closely with an estate agent. They are able to work with other agents with multiple listings, so you don't have to call 7 or 8 different listings. They will manage this for you. So you find one you like, they come recommended. Um, Fortunately, we do know who to trust. So give one of our property consultants a call. They will be able to match you with an agent in the and any of the services in that area where you're buying. So if you have an idea of where you want to buy, um, we can definitely recommend a reputable estate agent in that area.
And the second person that you need um, to use and to engage the services of is a good property lawyer. Now, often if you buy a property abroad, then the estate agent will say, "Oh, I know a fantastic lawyer. Don't you worry." In the olden days, they might have said, "Oh, my brother-in-law will do that for you." We absolutely recommend that you get an independent lawyer who you find yourself or through an independent group like us. The lawyer will have your interests at heart. They need to be able to speak your your language. They should be a property specialist, but they should also know the local area, or at least the country, obviously. Um, the third person that you need to trust is, of course, the person that's handling your money. And the main issue with buying property abroad is that it takes a couple of months to go through. Sometimes it takes 3 months, and during that time, the exchange rate can change. So you really need to be dealing with a property specialist who will be able to also obviously explain that, secondly handle that, and thirdly keep your money safe. So for example, this time last year the pound was something like 118 last August, and 6 weeks later it was about 111. It lost 7%. So if you had bought a property, if you would agree to buy a property in the eurozone a year ago, but for completion a couple of months later, you would have had to find an extra 8% on top, also on top of the fee. So on top of uh, the buying price. So it's really essential that you speak to a currency specialist uh, about getting that payment there, and then and you can fix that rate as soon as you agree a price, and then you know what you'll be paying abroad. We
Yeah,
recommend Smart Currency
definitely.
Exchange. We 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 recommend Smart Currency Exchange. Uh, they've been going for 20 years, and they know exactly how to deal with all these property matters.
Yeah, I believe Smart Currency Exchange specializes in helping people overseas, move overseas, sorry. So yeah, they're a great currency specialist to reach out to. And so, talking about our golden three, here at Your Overseas Home, we have a team of dedicated property consultants led by Yasmin, who you might recognize from our emails, and you might have even spoken to her on the phone. So, Yasmin leads a team of six who are able to provide guidance from start to finish. So, as we were talking about our golden three, Yasmin and her team are well acquainted with all of our partners who come trusted and vetted by us. So you know they're reputable and they're not going to rip you off basically. And they can suggest services including independent financial advisors, property lawyers, estate agents, healthcare, removals, and mortgage experts and currency and foreign exchange experts. So yeah, the team work 8:30 till 6 p.m. on Monday to Friday. Yeah, so you can give them a call entirely for free. It's not a service we charge for, and they will be able to put you in touch with one of our trusted partners.
Yeah, it's so important to deal with people with the specialist knowledge. For example, your own IFA won't be legally allowed to give you advice when you have moved to Spain or France, and there are certain things. There's big mistakes that you can make without realizing you're doing. For example, I hadn't realized that the 25% of your pension that you're allowed to take tax free, if you have already moved abroad, that won't be tax free. So you could end up with a massive tax bill that you didn't expect just from moving at the wrong time. So it really is important to speak to those experts first and to know which expert that you're dealing with in that particular field. Okay, so moving on, we've done the planning. We've talked about whether you can live there. We've talked about getting your team in place. So you're now ready to buy, and it's time for the all-important viewing trip, where it all becomes very real, and you're not just looking at the properties on our portal or Rightmove. You're actually going there to have a look. So we put together 6 viewing trip top tips. Um, I'm going to start off. It's quite an obvious one, but don't go when everything is shut or too busy. So you might think, oh, we'll go at the weekend. Well, weekends aren't perhaps the best time to go because local estate agents, they want to have a weekend just like most other people, and you might find they're not working on a Saturday on a Sunday. So we would suggest it's probably best to go midweek. Also, you may find that in some countries people aren't really working in the height of summer, and it can be a bit too hot, and the hotels are full. So you might perhaps want to avoid August. On the other hand, you may speak to an agent and they say, no, it's completely fine. Come out at a weekend in August. The important thing is to speak to that estate agent first and make sure that they're going to be open and it's a good time to come.
Yes, definitely. So, our second point is decide if your viewing trip is just looking or you're ready to buy. This is just so that you and whoever you're buying with are on the same page. You want to decide between yourselves whether this is purely a research trip to kind of gauge an idea of what properties in the area look like, decide what you would want from the property, or are you willing to buy a property on this viewing trip. It needs to be something that you're aligned with, so that you don't have any arguments in front of your property agent. Um, and yeah, so just definitely something to talk about before you go.
Our next top tip is, if possible, if this is a viewing trip, then try to stay as local as you can, or in the kind of property that you would be buying. So, for example, if you want to buy in a French village, then why not stay, if possible, in that village? Then you'll really get to know the area. If you're buying on a particular golf resort in Spain, then try to stay in that golf resort rather than in a uh, in a in a in a hotel elsewhere. Airbnb is really good for this because it means that you can stay in the local community and just get a feel for what it would actually be like to live there.
Yes. Our top tip number 4 is to have your support team on speed dial. Um, so this basically is in case you're asked to sign something, pay a deposit, or are ready to buy. So you want to act fast, as we know properties aren't on the market for long, especially if they're desirable. So you want to be able to call your lawyer and your currency specialist as soon as you can when you need to sign or put some money down, so that they can put the plan in action to get you that property that you're after.
Our next top tip is to know what to ask the agent. And I suppose the example I would give is, if you were buying in the UK and you didn't know the difference between freehold and leasehold, you could buy an apartment and and get yourselves in all sorts of trouble. So you need to know what you don't know. It- Um, and the best way of doing that, of course, is to speak to a lawyer first and explain what you're looking to buy, and find out from that lawyer what the main issues are and what you need to es- to establish. But once you know what to ask, you then need to make sure that you actually ask it and that you record the answer. And just generally going around, it's a good idea to have a standard way of taking notes, rather than just scrawling it on a piece of paper. Perhaps make yourself a little questionnaire, or perhaps a little Excel spreadsheet, just to fill in those answers, so you know that you're establishing all the right points, that you're asking all the right questions, and you've recorded the answers. Take a video while you're going around. Take lots of photos. Whatever works for you. Just don't make it a wasted trip.
Yeah, that's definitely true, Chris. Um, just a little sell point. A really great way to do this is to download our free viewing trip guide. You can see a little preview just here. Yeah, there's the website propertyguides.com. There's space to make your own lists in here. It's truly a definitive guide to making your viewing trip a success. Okay, so our final top tip is to not be too reliant on your estate agent. I do know back in the day, big property developers would charter planes and take hundreds of people and really put the thumb screws on them to make you buy. Those days are gone, but still, you wouldn't have a measure of independence from your agent. That just might mean hiring your own car so you can explore the area by yourselves and see what's on offer, see what's around the corner really, or maybe go back later at night and see what's on offer, what the nightlife's like. Um, yeah, so really just important to maintain a kind of sense of independence.
Right. Right. Moving on, we're going to talk about the buying process. Now, you might think the buying process is completely different in other countries. It's really not. I think that's why so many people found it more easy than they expected it to. Essentially, buying a property in the eurozone, is pretty much the same as the UK. We don't really use mainly an auction system like they do in Australia. We don't really have someone called a title insurer as they do in the US. So the main difference really is the use of a notary to witness the legal contract. So we're going to go through the rough legal process. So where do we start?
So we start by making an offer and agreeing a price. So depending on the price of the property, you could, oh, sorry, I'm reading the wrong section. Um, yeah, so you'll normally work with your estate agent here. Clearly, they want you to buy, so do be aware of that and check any claims with a lawyer before you go ahead and sign. If you're in France and buying through an agent, you may be asked to sign a bond de visite. This is normal practice in France and simply means that should you decide to proceed with the purchase, you'll make the offer through them and not go off with another agent and privately approach the vendor. It is no commitment to an actual purchase. It just means that you're committing to the agent to liaise through them. What's the next step, Chris?
Well, just to mention on that, Rosie, we do have a negotiation guide on our website. Just find it on either the Property Guides website or ULC's home, and because it's quite hard to know if you're in a different area whether you're paying a fair price. So this guide just sort of gives you a few tips on how to know that you're basically getting a fair price. Once you have established that, and one difference abroad is that you'll often be asked to fill in a reservation contract and pay a reservation fee. This would normally be between about 3,000 and 10,000 euros, depending on the price of the property. It may be refundable if you change your mind. It may not be. If you want to make sure it's refundable, then you should make it dependent on preliminary legal checks, or, for example, getting a mortgage or a building survey. The You should also so in France, I believe it's called an offer de achat. In some countries, there's a 10-day cooling off period. Your lawyer will give a basic say so. If you just sort of take a photo of the contract, send it off to them, they can usually say, "Yep, that's fine," or "No, no, whatever you do, don't sign that." And then once you've done that, I suppose one sort of difference when buying property abroad is you tend not to get a survey in most of our countries that we're dealing with here. I know a lot of people in the UK would always get a survey done. It's less common abroad, but you can find a surveyor if you want to. RICS, that's the Royal Institution for the Chartered Surveyors. They work I know in Cyprus, they work in Portugal, and you can usually find a RICS surveyor to check the property over. Or I believe in some countries they use an architect. So one way or another, you can get a survey if you want to. So what happens next, Rosie?
Yes, so your next contract, sometimes that's 10%. We must point out that there are all sorts of different scenarios, and the buying process can be very different. And a good example of this is buying off plan. So sometimes when you're buying an off plan property, you can decide to go straight to completion. However, what we've put here is a typical process for most buyers. So before the 15 to 30 days set out on your reservation agreement has run out, you'll be asked to sign a deposit contract. And that's what commits you to buying the property and the seller to sell it to you. It's a key part of your legal process when buying a property. In Spain, it's called the Contrato de Arras, and there's no chance of gazumping like in the UK. In Portugal, it's called the Contrato de Promessa e Compra e Venda, and I'm not going to attempt the Cyprus and Greece ones. Chris, tell us about what happens for completion.
Yeah, so after you pay that deposit, you can then the lawyers will get to work, and it can take a couple of months before you do finally get to go to the notary's office and actually sign the final deed and get the keys to your property. You don't have to go to the notary's office. I mean, I think some people rather enjoy it. We've heard of it being quite a party atmosphere almost with and in Italy, they first of all they'll read it in Italian, then they'll read it in English, and there's all sorts of processes. It feels quite formal, but also quite exciting because you're finally getting that property after all those years. However, if you don't want to go through all that palaver, then you can usually get it all done under power of attorney. And then you've got your property. You'll pay the local taxes. The title deeds will be registered in your name, and you have your property abroad. Congratulations. We've helped many people do this. Tell us about one, Rosie.
Yes, so here's a little postcard that our team member Yasmin received from a couple who she helped buy a property in Italy. Sarah and Errol were looking to buy in Italy. You can see on the right hand side of here, this is the timeline of them buying. So they first got in contact with us in August 2020. And in September, Yasmin was able to connect them with Smart Currency Exchange. It is handy to get in touch with Smart Currency up to a year in advance if you're buying overseas. I don't think it's ever too early, as they're able to monitor the exchange rates for you, which is what Sarah and Errol did. They managed to find their dream property in January this year. Later in February, Yasmin recommended them a mortgage specialist for their home, which they went ahead with. I believe they're now looking to renovate it and make it a holiday home. You can see on the postcard next year they're looking to get their next property in Tuscany or Lake Como. And yeah, they completed their sale in July 2023. And yeah, they've already got started on their renovations. So that's just a typical example of a buyer. Maybe this could be you in 6 months' time.
Yeah, or even sooner. Why not book that viewing trip in September? Okay, so next steps. What should you do next if we've inspired you or we've persuaded you that you can do it? What should you do now? Well, the first thing is to just go ahead and make your own dreams come true. Book that viewing trip. Get that team behind you. If you and also save the date for our show, our virtual property show in November. We do 2 shows. We do one in November, one in March. They're just like the big property shows that you see at Excel and the Birmingham NEC, but the advantage is that you don't have to go to the Birmingham NEC. You can do it all from your own home. It's all online. You can come and go. You can be speaking to an estate agent online and them showing your properties while on another screen you can be surreptitiously checking out the area on Google. So it's really sort of a good marrying of technology. There will be you can speak to overseas experts face to face. You can download all that lovely content, all those guides. You can get your burning questions answered, and you can come away much more confident and ready to start your journey. So do watch out for our marketing for that, which will be starting very soon for our November show.
Yep. I will just confirm that it is a free event. You don't have to pay to attend. It's completely online. You just get a link, log in the day. You can log in and out as many times as you want. And yeah, it's a really good opportunity to speak to people on the ground in another country where you're looking to buy without traveling or even leaving your house, really.
Excellent. We think of it really as being like your first viewing trip, but without the carbon footprint or the expense or the time. You can get all your basic questions answered first, and then when you do go abroad, it can be just to really find that perfect house. So your next steps, Rosie.
Yeah, so your first step can be to schedule a call with one of our property consultants, that be Yasmin and her team. They'll be able to advise you on your next step. So they're there for your support, really. They're the experts. They can put you in touch with property agents, lawyers, IFAs, basically anything you want. You can call at any point of your buying process, update them, let them know. They love to hear success stories. So yeah, they're a really good point of call. Our next step, you can browse thousands of available homes on our property portal. To access these, just head to youroverseashome.com. You can see there's 4 lovely homes at the bottom there that are actually still on the market. So yep, you can browse those at your leisure. You can sign up for our upcoming webinars. So today's webinar has been rather generic, a bit of an introduction to buying, but we do host country-specific webinars, expert guests. So it's not just always Chris and I talking to each other. We normally are interviewing an expert from overseas. So be that a lawyer in France, a currency specialist here in London, or property agents elsewhere.
Yep, and you'll have plenty of time to ask your own questions on those ones. And finally, well, not finally. In fact, it turns out, browse our wide selection of guides. As we've already said, we have everything from the first plans to actually living there. So do take a look, download a guide, stick it on your iPad. You can just flick through it as you in between viewings. But do schedule that viewing trip, because it's not perhaps an opportunity to miss. Having done all this research, why don't you go ahead and make that first step? So
Yeah, it's
we
also really good to have something to work towards. Having it on paper, knowing that you're working towards an actual goal rather than just browsing on endless property portals, which I'm sure we've all done. But yeah, it's nice to have a viewing trip to really make it feel more official, like you're actually going to go and live somewhere overseas.
Yeah, very good point, Rosie. So thank you for joining us. Now we have a few questions come in. Jane has asked how we make our money, and well, the answer basically is we're paid a commission by agents when you buy a property, essentially. So we don't charge you, and we are independent.
Yeah, so we make all of our money from promotions with partners. So, like I said earlier, we don't just partner with anyone. We only partner with the best. So they're trusted, reliable services that you can count on. So yeah, we make all of our money through advertisements for them. It's nothing of charge to you.
Okay.
Okay. So
you
Our
got the
next
next question?
question's from John, and he's asking, Chris, can you tell us why a currency specialist is better to use than your bank?
Sure, absolutely. Well, if you can find a high street bank open, they specialize in current accounts and so on. They are not really currency specialists, and they certainly are not property specialists. And when you are spending, 250,000 euros perhaps on a property abroad, it's your life savings. It could be critical when you're in the notary's office that the money gets there at the right time. You really want to be dealing with someone who you have established a relationship with, who is on the phone rather than wading through a whole call center. And that's why we, our clients really tell us they find it better using a currency specialist. Obviously, there's also online services, online only services, and they can save you a little bit of money, but the rates aren't that much better, and you do lose that personal touch. You do lose that element of service, and if it all goes wrong with Wise, who you're going to call, basically. So we think that it's better to use an FX specialist who specializes in property, and we recommend Smart Currency. I can see a question here, one coming through. Is the reservation deposit taken off the final bill, Rosie?
Yes, I believe it is. It's included in the final price of your property.
Okay.
So yeah, it's not on top, it's not added, so you can just, yeah, don't worry about that.
Okay.
Okay,
I can
let's
see.
have a look at another question.
I've got one
Sorry.
here. I've got one here.
Um,
They're coming through thick and fast. We will try to answer them all. We can't answer them all now, but we'll get back to you with them, or just call the property consultant. One we got through is how much should we add on to the buying costs? Certainly more than the UK sadly. Here you might only be paying a couple of thousand on. You should really budget for as much as 10% extra. Of course, you might get that money off in the negotiation process, but you should really, if you're looking for 200,000 euro property, kind of allow for an extra 10% on the costs, and then you won't be disappointed.
Thanks, Chris. Okay, our next question is from Ryan. He's asking, can you benefit if your partner has an EU passport? You definitely can. That is only if you're married or in a civil partnership. You will be able to gain an EU passport through them. So it's very beneficial. Yeah, but that does only appear if you are married or in a civil partnership, as that's all what the Schengen zone recognizes. Um, but yes, that will definitely help you out. You won't need a visa. You can apply for that separately.
Yep. We've had another question about whether people have been put off by the fact that there's been heat waves um, all over Europe. I suppose my answer should be, having been doing this for a little while, we've been through Brexit, and people have still managed to and have still wanted to to buy property abroad and move. We've been through COVID, um, and I and demand has never been higher. So I don't think people are being put off buying property abroad, even though there have been heat waves in a lot of those areas. I know it's been all over the press that perhaps people are going to start holidaying in Belgium or Ireland more, but I think we kind of believe we'll believe it when we see it, and certainly we're not seeing any drop off in demand. However, it is worth considering that when you're buying property, for example, new build off plan, they can be a little bit better insulated, a little bit perhaps more geared up for hotter weather. But do also look at our website, because we've got all sorts of articles about how to keep your apartment cool, or your house cool in the summer. Please don't be put off.
Yes, definitely. I will say that website for those articles is propertyguides.com. You should be able to find that through your overseas home. I think we have time for one more question. I can see Sarah's asked, can we recommend an IFA? We certainly can. We work with Chase Buchanan. They are fabulous. They know everything about taxes, finances. They can help you with organizing your finances to move overseas and budgeting. For more information, do reach out to our property consultants, and Yasmin and her team can give you all of their information.
Okay, well, I think that's all we got time for. This is the first of our autumn webinars, so do take a look at, at the website and sign up for as many as you like. Normally, as we say, we'll be speaking to a local expert, an Italian lawyer, or a French visa specialist, or an estate agent. So do sign up for more webinars. If you've found this one useful, do check us out. Do find us on Trustpilot. Leave a review. That would be very helpful. And
yes, that's all we've got time for today. So thank you so much for joining us. You will be able to view this webinar on demand from tomorrow. So thanks so much, and it's been lovely to see you all, guys. Thank you.
yeah, good luck in your search. Bye bye.